Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who is joining now. Thank you for being with us today. And so as we've mentioned before, welcome to this update session. So today we will be covering various topics around the newest updates from IDSA head office, and it's about the IDS connector and certification and some of the recently updated assets that we have that are in relation to that. So today we will be having, we are here with my dear colleagues, Giulia Giussani and Sonia Jimenez, and we will be covering these issues. So up to now, I really hope that everyone is able to see the slides and is able to access the video and audio seamlessly. And so, as mentioned, today's agenda is covering various topics, including interoperability, Dataspace Protocol, and IDS deployment scenarios. And then we will go with the data connector report, and then we will be deeply diving into details of IDS certification. And some information about the flow of the webinar. So you are in listen-only mode. So if you would like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function. And in the Q&A session, you will be having rights to speak and ask questions. So if you would like to ask a question, you can also use the questions panel in the right side of the screen, and we will be able to see them. And meanwhile, please feel free to use the chat's functionality as well. So I think we may start with the first one. So so my name is Anil. I'm working as a senior project manager in technology and architecture team of IDSA, and so I will be covering the dataspace interoperability and some recently updated assets that we have that are really important in assuring that. So first of all, when we think about the interoperability term, which is being discussed in many frontiers, like in the projects, in the implementations, and all the stuff. So we probably all know about these 4 layers of interoperability, which are technical, semantic, organizational, and legal. And so when we are talking about the technical one, so we are trying to cover the problem, trying to find a solution to the problem about how do different dataspace instances may communicate fluently with each other. And there we have Dataspace Protocol, so we will be focusing on that, and connectors and component frameworks that are needed on that end. And for the semantic, of course, we are talking about how data definitions are interpreted in different platforms and how the data definitions can be harmonized across different platforms. So there we have the dataspace authority policies, which are also mentioned in the Dataspace Protocol, and also the semantic models that are domain agnostic, such as IDS information model or sector-specific semantic models and information models and vocabularies as well. So this will not be the focus for today, but we have enough content for this that were previously recorded and that will also be in the future. And then we have the organizational layer of interoperability. There we are talking about how the operational processes and procedures could be harmonious, could be compatible with each other. And there we are trying to find solutions to that via IDSA rulebook, which you can access through our website quite easily. And we also have this 4th layer, the legal layer of interoperability. There are really various questions there, starting with how our contractual agreements are recognized in different jurisdictions, like how does it happen, how data sharing is happening across borders, and what challenges arise when you are enforcing the contractual terms across countries, borders, continents, and all the limitations. There we have the task force legal framework from IDSA, which is trying to find solutions to those questions. So this is an ongoing process in all 4 frontiers, I can say. And so today, as mentioned, we will be providing more information about the Dataspace protocol and connectors and stuff. So first of all, we would like to really keep in mind this concept. So because from time to time, we have the impression that when we are talking about interoperability or compatibility between elements of a data space, we are limiting ourselves to the intra-data space. So intra-data space means the compatibility and the interoperability of the elements that are within a data space. But when we are implementing a data space, we should also think about how it will be interoperable or compatible with other data spaces, either from the same industry or from different industries. So this is something we should always keep in mind, and this is it looks like this is the future. So everybody will be needing to think in that direction. So we really don't want to end up in silos, in a fragmented structure where everybody is doing data sharing on their own, but really not thinking about the universal ecosystem which is waiting over there. So we need to have some compatible solutions, and Dataspace Protocol is a great step forward about it. So you can find more information on our GitHub. Also, we have a rendered version, a reader-friendly version available on our knowledge base that you can easily access through our website. So the Dataspace Protocol is basically the protocol that will ensure this inter-data space interoperability, and also it's making some kind of revolutionary step by separating the control plane from the data plane. So we have basically here the control plane, which is more focusing on how the authorization is made for sharing data, and the data plane where the data transfer is the main focus, and where we are trying to ensure that data is shared seamlessly. So it's basically, in its structure, is consisting of three main protocols, which are the catalog protocol, contract negotiation protocol, and the transfer protocol. And in the catalog protocol is helping everyone to see what data is available. So these are the documents that define how VCAT catalogs are published and could be accessed as HTTPS endpoints. And in the contract negotiation protocol is where the requirements are fulfilled to get a permission to access the data. So it's where the contract negotiations are happening between parties, between data providers and data consumers. And the transfer protocol is about using the data once you get the permission from the necessary parties, and all the specifications that are publicly available. So they define a RESTful API over HTTPS, and also have open API specifications that you can use for further definitions and also for better understanding. So basically, why do we separate these layers, the control plane and the data plane? Basically, it provides some flexibility for the future scaling of the data spaces. Like when you separate the decision-making layer from the action-taking layer. So decision-making layer refers to the control plane, and the action-taking refers to the data plane. There you can easily implement the same structure, the same data space for any other purpose in a much easier way. So it provides the flexibility, and also it's more agnostic in terms of technology. So you can use different data space protocols without changing the control mechanisms of the data space. And of course, there's the security aspect of it. So the control plane can focus on ensuring secure and trusted data exchange, and data plane can focus on efficient data transfer. So two different perspectives are there. And scalability is, of course, one of the most important issues. So it's expected to be much easier to scale each plane, because once you apply a super successful control plane, then you can definitely use it for any other implementations or for any other data space instance. And the modularity is also one big advantage of that. So if you need to update or change the data transfer process, for example, this can be done without affecting the control mechanisms. So all these advantages are pretty much available there. And so as mentioned, it's you are warmly invited to check it. It's publicly available on our GitHub and on our knowledge base. So from here, I would also like to jump into the deployment scenarios, which is something that we are pushing forward, especially in the last few months. So we are trying to collect the successful and reusable deployment examples that are applying IDS. So once you have once you are working with a data space implementation, and if you have at least one component which is IDS compliant, then this can be considered as an IDS deployment scenario, and other people can learn from it, can reuse it, and so in parallel to the open source philosophy, another person can make the same implementation by following the same footsteps and make it better or worse than you, but there is always something to learn from, either from successes or failures. So once you have some kind of a deployment that contains any IDS element in it, any IDS compliant component or a set of IDS compliant components, then you are warmly invited to share it with IDSA head office, and we will be including them in our GitHub and also in a report that we are preparing. So basically, IDS deployment scenarios work like that, and these are like the implementations that are documented to make everyone in the ecosystem to learn from. So these are really, really important stuff. This is the end of my slides, and I will be inviting my colleague Giulia to the stage. So if you have any questions, as mentioned, please feel free to ask them anytime, and you are warmly invited to check the existing documentation. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anil. So if there are no questions right now, I will jump into my presentation, and then we can also dedicate some time at the end of the session for a general Q&A. So my presentation today will focus on the data connector report. And I think Anil's presentation was indeed the perfect bridge. So we see how much is going on the technical side and how much is available on GitHub. What is a data connector report? Why is there? That's indeed what we will discover together right now. Going to the next slide. You have a first quick overview about the connector report. The focus is indeed on data connectors, and you will find in there both content and explanation, but also concrete examples of implementation of connectors. Right now, we have more than 20 connectors in there. If we jump to the next slide, you will understand better why indeed we started with this. So we really wanted to explain what data connectors are and why they're crucial in data spaces. We also wanted to provide some transparency about how much is going on, how many connectors implementations are available. So when we talk about IDS connectors, we actually mean a multitude of connectors that can suit different scenarios and have different features. In the connector report, we also start talking about interoperability. This is a very important point. Also, Anil explained the different levels of interoperability that we have and how IDS, the IDS approach can give a tool and some instructions for that. In the connector report, we focus indeed on the level of technical interoperability. And IDSA is always really welcoming and inclusive associations. Therefore, we really wanted to also provide additional insights on what's happening outside the IDSA community and trying to gather together also different initiatives and actors. You see, we have two chapters for that. One focuses on additional technologies for data spaces, and the other one focuses on emerging solutions and additional initiatives. Why a monthly publication? We've reasoned a lot about it. We wanted to have a certain heartbeat, and we decided that a monthly publication is the perfect fit. We want the Data Connector report to act as a reliable and updated source of information. We always want to refine the content provided there, and we also want to follow a bit the evolution of the different connector implementations. Regarding the last two chapters that I mentioned, we also want to always include the latest information on these emerging solutions and the data space technologies out there. As mentioned, to foster this inclusiveness and to have this vision of a future alignment with the IDS standard. A couple of examples for the additional technologies for data spaces we mentioned in there, the iShare, the My Data Operators, the former GAIA Federation services that are now known as Eclipse cross-federation services and so on. And for additional solutions and emerging technologies, we mentioned there, for example, the OKP4 protocol or the Ocean protocol. Moving to the next slide, you can have a better perception of where we are right now. So we started at the end of last year with the first publication of the connector report. I think we had there like 15, 16 connectors. We currently have 20 plus actually. And we managed to continue this monthly heartbeat just with a summer break, as you can see. Now we're back. We're currently finalizing the September version. Please make sure to check it out, even if you're very familiar with the May version, because in there we are preparing a lot of major changes, not just as far as the content is concerned, but also as far as description of connectors and additional promising solutions. So please keep an eye on it next week, how you can download it. Of course, on the IDSA website. In there, you will always be able to find the most recent version, and you'll also be able to access the past versions. Of course, if you're subscribed to the IDSA newsletter, you will also be able to receive an update when the new connector report is out. And we also provide the option to subscribe to our RSS feed. So if that's something for you, go for it. You can check it out on the IDSA website. For us, the connector report is really something alive, and it's something that grows together with the community. Therefore, I would really invite every one of you to check it out and to provide us feedback. Also, very simple one, I like it. Please update this kind of information or include information on a certain topic. We will be more than happy to implement that. And if you have an IDS connector, please also reach out to us so that we can include it there. And you can always reach out to us also to update information on your connector. So we try to stay in contact with all the companies that have such connectors to request updates, but of course, please keep in mind, as soon as you have a major update, you can also reach out to us. How to do that? It's very simple. We have one contact form for any of these purposes, and you can find it either on the IDSA website or directly in the connector report. Yeah, that was my overview. If there are questions, I'm happy to tackle them immediately. Otherwise, we can move to the next presentation, and then we can have the Q&A afterwards. Okay, it doesn't seem the case. So I see that Sonia, you opened your camera, and we can jump into the next topic.
Yes, thank you, Giulia. Yes, so now we jump to the third part of the update session, and I will be talking about the IDS certification. Yes, so the IDS certification is our way to build trust in data spaces. So here you can see maybe this slide you've seen already. This is what we call the magic triangle of the IDSA. This is the reliable base for data spaces. So you can see at the top we have the IDS reference architecture as the blueprint for data spaces. We have on the left-hand side the portfolio of open source building blocks. This helps bring the IDS in commercial setups. And on the right-hand side, you can find the certification scheme. So this the third corner of this triangle. And this is the way we ensure that the participants of the data space and as well as the components, the IDS components that they are using in data space are trustworthy. So this is how you can see here how the certification scheme fits into the overall strategy of the IDS. So what's very important for us is already been mentioned is that we ensure we bring this trust into the data spaces. So next slide, please. So this is, here you can see a very simplified version of a data space. So you can have several participants acting as data providers, data consumers. As you know, the data sharing happens peer-to-peer. So we don't have any central structure there. So it's peer-to-peer. And what's important is all these participants of the data space, they can be sure that the rest of the participants are also trustworthy. So they need to meet a series of requirements to be part of the data space. But the good thing is all the rest of the participants, they also need to meet these requirements. So we have to make sure first that the connector that they are using to send the data and to receive the data is trustworthy, but also that these organizations where the connectors or the components are running, they are also trustworthy. So this is what we do with the certification scheme. And the certification applies to two areas. So on the left-hand side, you can see the operational environment. So we evaluate the trustworthiness of the participating organizations of the data space. So we check that they meet some technical and procedural requirements that are documented in a specific criteria catalog. And we also check the trustworthiness of the components that have been developed and that are being used in the data space. And here we check the functional and security requirements and also interoperability. And they also all defined in a specific criteria catalog for the specific components. Here's our main component. So the data connector, my colleague Julia already explained that we have many different implementations of data connectors. And we have defined a certification scheme for data connectors, and we check several criteria. So we check security criteria, and we check also that the connector can interoperate with other components of the data space. And this is the main component because every participant that wants to operate in an IDS-based data space needs to have a connector either to send or to receive the data. And all of these connectors of the data space need to be certified. And the question, why should I certify my data connectors? So there are many reasons why data connectors must be certified. So first, we make sure that the connectors have been developed according to the IDS specifications. So because otherwise anyone can claim to have an IDS connector, but we have to make sure that the connector that somebody has developed meets the requirements and it's secure, so that there are no issues when operating with this connector in a data space. This certification includes a series of security testing and analysis to help identify and potential security vulnerabilities. Interoperability, so as preparation for certification and as part of the certification process, the connector has to be tested against several other components in an IDS reference testbed. So we make sure that this your own developed connector can interoperate with these other components. We check compliance with industry standard and regulations, and I will dig a bit deeper in a minute, because our certification scheme is also based on existing standards. And another reason is reduced development time and cost. So by using a certified data connector, you can make sure that you can right away participate in a data space without additional development and testing activities. Yes. Yeah, so the IDS certification defines 156 security criteria. And here you can see, you can have an overview of the criteria. So we use existing criteria from standards, like the ones you see on the left-hand side. So we have adopted security criteria from the ISO 27001 on how to manage information security, also from IEC 62443, cybersecurity criteria. We also used security criteria from CSA Cloud Control Matrix and from C5. And on top of these existing criteria, standard criteria, we have defined specific criteria for the IDS, because as well, we have defined specific functionality for IDS components. And that's why we have defined the specific criteria to test all these functionalities. And here you have the list on the right-hand side, things like data usage control, communication security, information model, etc. And all of these criteria can be found in specific documents for every component. So here you can see the criteria catalog for the connector, and they can all be requested from our website. And here you have more detailed information about the certification criteria for components. So what exactly are we checking, are we testing from our own defined criteria as well as from the standards? As I say, you can find all the specific criteria in the criteria catalogs. Yeah, so how does this happen? How to do IDS certification? So we're gonna see now. Yeah, as mentioned, there are two types of certification. Both are mandatory to operate in IDS-based data spaces. So you need to have a certified component, a certified connector if you're a participant of a data space, and you need to also certify your operational environment. So this way we make sure that both the components that are being used in the data space and the participants of the data space are trustworthy. So all the participants, all the components need to be certified. In the case of the components, we prove that they provide the required functionality and security. In the case of the operational environment, we make sure that the company or the physical environment where that component is running is also trustworthy. So we check processes and organizational rules. And here you can see the two types, the two assurance levels that we offer for certification, depending on the requirements of the data space. So on the left-hand side, we have the process for assurance level 1. This is a faster, so to say, process. Here, the applicant applies to certification in our website, and they conduct a self-assessment. Then the certification body, which is the body that oversees the process and that decides if the certification was successful and issues the certificate, they oversee this process. And as I said, in the case of a successful certification, they will issue the certificate for the applicant. On the right-hand side, we have the process for assurance level 2. Here we bring a higher level of assurance of security to the process, and we bring a third party, which is an evaluation facility. So in this case, the applicant will prepare for certification, exactly the same as for assurance level 1, but instead of running or doing a self-assessment, there will be an evaluation facility that will conduct the process, so that will perform all the testing for the applicant. And at the end, the evaluation facility will issue an evaluation report, and the certification body will review this report and then have the final say and decide if this was a successful certification, and then issue the certificate. So I said, this is a more thorough process. We have this here, a third-party evaluations. So it's important to mention that evaluation facilities also have to meet a list of requirements to become evaluation facilities and go through a process, also an assessment process. So we make sure that they are capable of conducting certifications for assurance level 2. Here in the case of, well, actually in both cases, we offer different assurance levels. Here you can see in the case of the component certification. So for assurance level 1, the process is called checklist approach. It consists of a self-assessment that can be done in our certification portal. And here as preparation, you can use the reference testbed, and you can check that the connector can interoperate with other components, and also the certification criteria needs to be checked to make sure you meet all the requirements there from the certification criteria. On the right-hand side, the assurance level 2 concept review. This is the evaluation that's conducted by a third party, so an evaluation facility that brings, so the preparation is the same, but it brings a higher level of security and to the evaluation. Yeah. So for assurance level 1, we have the checklist, we have the certification portal for the checklist approach. So this is a portal that we've developed only for our certification process assurance level 1. Here you can find all the set of questions, around 200 questions that you have to answer. This portal is only accessible once you have applied for certification. But it's an easy to use tool where the evaluation is conducted. So you can save your results. You don't have to do everything at once. And you also have the possibility to upload some log files from your previous testing. And for assurance level 2, the concept review, we have currently one evaluation facility in place at SQS in Spain. More evaluation facilities are getting ready. So we will have more evaluation facilities in the coming months. And as I said, this is a more thorough process because this third party testing all the criteria and issuing the evaluation report. For operational environment, we currently have assurance level 1 available. So also in the certification portal, we have the questionnaire there, and the process for applying is the same. You will get access to the portal, to the specific questionnaire for operational environment. And the good thing is we have both parts ready to be able to certify operational environment and your connector to participate in IDS-based data spaces. Yeah, as preparation for certification, so already mentioned. So either it doesn't matter if you're applying to certification assurance level 1 or 2. If you have a connector, you would like to certify it, you need to test it in the IDS reference testbed. So this is a setup of open source components, the ones you can see in there. So we have 2 connectors, a broker, a certificate authority, and adapts. And we describe how to deploy the testbed, and we describe how to perform all the tests with your own developed connector. So we describe how the interactions with from your connector to the rest of the components of the testbed should happen. And this is also an open source, and it can be found in a repository on GitHub. So anyone can deploy it and can start testing their connector. And once these tests have been successful, and you've checked that you meet the certification criteria, then you are ready to apply for certification. So once you decide you want to apply for certification, so here you have the phases. First, you have to prepare for it. So either you test your connector in case of the connector certification, you deploy the test bed, or go to a testing facility and run all the tests there and read the certification criteria catalogs and make sure you meet all the criteria defined. In the case of the operational environment certification, we also have a specific criteria catalog. So once you see you meet all the requirements, you can apply easily in our website by filling out a questionnaire. And then once you've applied, you can start your evaluation. Either you get access to the portal in the case of assurance level 1, or you get in touch with one evaluation facility to start the evaluation process. And at the end, if the evaluation was successful, the certification body will issue the specific certificate. Yes, and here is all the information that's available regarding certification. So it's important to mention that everything is available either on our homepage or in GitHub. So everything meaning the complete certification scheme, the process for the evaluation facilities to become evaluation facilities, the certification criteria that can be requested from our website. Also, the repository for the testbed is also publicly available. And any information regarding certification can be found, as I said, either on our homepage on GitHub. Also, the current versions of the certification scheme, the rules of procedure, etc., etc. Everything is available. Okay. So I'm done with my presentation. I think we want to mention here about the next session of the Data Spaces Dialogue that will happen on September 21st. Also this time from 10 to 11. And here we will get an overview of the Green Deal data space. Okay, conducted by Dr. Reinhold Achatz, Jürgen Brettfeld, and Thorsten Hulsmann. Okay, thank you very much. And now it's time for the Q&A, so I will invite my colleagues also on stage.
Yes, thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Giulia, for the presentations. That was great. So now it's time when we are switching from monologue to dialogue. And so we can just start by checking the questions. So I will try to sort them by time. Okay, so we have, I think, one question. So you have two ways to ask questions, by the way. So you can use the questions panel, or you can also raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask it like that. So we have two questions. One from Yoshi Yonekura, who are certification body as of today, and how a company can become such a body?
Okay, so certification body, there's only one. Okay, and there will be only one. And right now it's part of the IDSA head office with the help of some external experts. So the goal is not to have more certification bodies. The goal is to have more evaluation facilities, because at the end we want to make sure that the process for anyone who wants to get certified, it's exactly the same. So these criteria and the rules are defined by the association, by the working group certification. The certification body is the body that makes sure that the process is correctly implemented. So they make sure that the evaluation facilities conduct the process according to what has been specified, and that all the evaluation facilities conduct the process the same way, meaning they use the same version of the testbed, they conduct the same tests, they ask for the same documentation, etc. So that will be the structure, having one certification body and several evaluation facilities, both for components and for operational environments.
Perfect.
Yeah. And as I said, just one thing, the process to become evaluation facility can be found in our website. Maybe I will share the link in a minute, but it's open for any company that has interest to become an evaluation facility. The process is exactly the same for any candidates.
Awesome. So we also have, so before coming to the other written questions, we have a hand raised for 11 minutes by Dr. Somakantan Somalingam. So could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, I did. So can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
So yeah, thanks a lot for the great insights. A quick question to Sonia. So what are the costs involved in the certification process and the timeline?
That depends on the assurance level, and that depends, that there has to be a first so pre-evaluation conducted by this evaluation facility. Okay, so I can give you one standard cost, and the timeline also depends on the level of preparation of your certification. So for instance, for the checklist approach, that's really straightforward. That's if you've done all the pre-testing, you have the log file generated by the testbed, you apply, and then it depends on how long it takes you to respond to the 200 questions of the portal. And then we need 2-3 weeks to evaluate and issue the report, the certificate. In the case of the assurance level 2, so the third-party evaluation, that process takes longer, but it really depends on the preparation that you've previously done with your connector, and and if your connector is 100% ready or not. So there's no standard, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Just one more. Is there any expiry date for certificates issued by?
Yes.
IDSA?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. A question. For the component certification, it's 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it's important to mention that we have a process for continuous certification, meaning we certify the first, well, one specific version of the components, but if you modify this version for whatever reason, it can be bug fixing, it can be you add new functionality to it, then we need to review, we need to check that new version of your component to make sure the certification criteria were not affected. And if they were affected, we need to test again that everything is correct.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Then we can skip to the next question. So again, it's for you, Sonia. So it's a question by Jarek Kowalski. Does it mean that SIG is not yet formally appointed as an external compliance certification authority, only SQS?
Yeah, right now we have only SQS. SIG are getting prepared. And as soon as they finalize the process, we will communicate it. But it's also important to mention this. This is also a thorough process to assess evaluation facilities, and it takes some time. Yeah. So because there's many things that we have to ensure. There's many things we have to check. We have to test. So it's can be a kind of longer process. So yeah, that's true. So that's the situation right now. SQS is the first and the only evaluation facility for components. SIG are getting ready, and as soon as they're ready, we'll communicate it.
Awesome. Again, this is a question for you, Sonia. So it's by Luciano Riccio. I hope I pronounced it well. To Sonia, to what I got during self-assessment process, it will be possible to get the question list only after applying. Is it possible to have the questions before applying in order to guide the development of the connector?
Not the questions, but really if you check the criteria, so the questions are based on the criteria, and the questions are based on the test that you do on the test bed. So it's not like you need the questions. If you check the criteria, the certification criteria, so it's a long list of criteria there. And if you test your component on the test bed, that's all the preparation that you would need. So because the questions are nothing that you haven't seen before, so to say, it's nothing, yeah, they're based on the criteria.
Perfect. So it looks like we don't have any further waiting questions. Again, we invite everyone to ask questions if you have any unresolved issue in your mind by raising your hand or writing here in the chat. So maybe if we don't have any, oh yeah, we have another one, I guess. Yes, by Stefan Kessler. So until now, the Gaia X AI SPL does not directly require a connector for data spaces, but they plan to prefer the EDC connector, right? So, well, Sonia, please go ahead and I can define.
Okay, so one thing that a very good question, because one thing I didn't mention is that we are aligning with Gaia X with their labels on how Gaia X labels and our certification come together. So the certification of components will be on us, so IDS will take care of that. But both things complement each other. So both things could be required. We say for IDS-based data spaces, certifying connectors and the operational environment is mandatory. How they will come, the EDC, well, there's already one version of the EDC being certified, and very soon we will announce it. What we are planning to do in the in very short term is to modify or upgrade the testbed to implement the Dataspace Protocol, the new Dataspace Protocol, which means any components that also use the Dataspace Protocol will also be tested. That means also some changes for us with regards to the criteria, the certification criteria, and the way we test those criteria. But this is already being tackled. So there will be no problem in certifying EDC components also once we make these changes to the testbed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We have another one.
Okay.
From Nilufar Kazamargi. Thanks for your presentation. My question is about specific criteria. How does IDSA define specific requirements like data usage control and etc.? For instance, who are decision makers? Is it IDSA?
Yeah, it's association. So we have a working group, the IDSA, it's called Working Group Certification. And this working group defines the criteria for certification. And any changes that we want to make because of several reasons has to be approved by this working group. Okay, and then we have the certification body has to make sure that all these decisions and all the what's been defined by the working group is correctly implemented by the evaluation facility. So that's the role. But yeah, the working group certification deals with that.
Yes, maybe just to add on top of that, I would like to say, so we have this working group architecture and working group certification working on different frontiers, and also the Dataspace Protocol group, for example, team is working on that. And but we really, I will refer back to my presentation. So we really need some kind of implementations of that. So either part of the connector report or part of the deployment scenario, so that we can really test the validity of those criteria and learn from them. So we are really not there yet. Like there are several implementations, of course, but when there will be more implementations, I think we will have a better source for learning from the implementations.
Maybe I'd like to mention one thing. So if in case there are more questions, in case some organization would like to know more about becoming an evaluation facility, or you're thinking about certifying a connector but still have questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me so that we can have also a separate discussion to clarify whatever needs to be clarified.
And I would like to add, if anyone has doubts on how to get involved, I will send a link in the chat to everyone. That's a new page on our website. Anil, I've also added a slide for it so that we can also use it as handout. If you click on the link that I just sent, you will see some instructions on how to get involved. So learning phase, but also how you can contribute. And to that regard, the tech team is organizing also the working group meetings in person. This is becoming a community event. Would you like to give some more details on that? It's still in a couple of weeks, so if you plan to travel close to the IDSA head office, maybe you should do it already today or tomorrow.
Yeah, so the working group architecture meeting will be on the 26th and in Düsseldorf, and the working group certification meeting on the 27th. We still have a couple spots available for the working group certification meeting. So you can still register, and then you will be part of all these discussions and all the decision making about everything regarding to certification.
Meanwhile, we have another question. So from Abdelkader Metales from University Paderborn. Thanks for your presentation. My question is about identity management, where the connector gets the trust identity to the connector.
So, and would you like to reply, Anil, or?
Well, I didn't get the question very well, I guess.
So if it's just about identities, in our current architecture, we have, if you remember the picture of the test, but we have two components that deal with identity management. One is the certificate authority and one is the DAPS. So you would get your X509 certificate from the certificate authority. Yeah, that's your certificate. And then for the actual transactions, you will get a token that from the DAPS. That answer your question?
Maybe Anya, if you want to share your screen again, I've added a slide that can be a good visual for those that are also not that familiar with the architecture, so the reference architecture. I've added it at the end of Sonia's presentation. That's slide 45. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, Giulia. That's great. So it's all happening here, actually.
Yes, maybe I can add a few things. So for those that are not familiar, this is the IDS, so the reference architecture model of IDSA foresees different elements. Some of them are mandatory, some of them are not. Of course, central part are the connector components that you can see at the two sides, because that's where the data sharing happens. You can also see a symbol of a shield. That's how we depict that the connectors are certified, because as Sonia mentioned, certification is mandatory. We are in a phase where there are different connectors and they're being tested, but in the future, especially when we have market-ready solutions, the connectors will be certified. Otherwise, it cannot prove that the solution sticks to the security and functionality requirements that are required in a data space. You can also see the broker. This is a metadata broker that serves the purpose of metadata search and discovery. You can also see the clearinghouse that is there to log the transactions in the data space. You can see the vocabulary hub. If you have questions on this, Anil is the expert. He can provide more details on that. And of course, in a data space, there must be an app store for additional applications. A key element, that's a mandatory element, that's the identity management. For that, as Sonia mentioned, we have two components, the DAPs and the Paris. And currently that's based on a centralized mechanism of the X509 certificates that Sonia mentioned. We are, of course, making the standard evolve. So maybe also your question goes a bit in that direction. What kind of identity mechanisms can be foreseen? Right now, the testbed uses this centralized identity management, but as you can also read in the new version of the rulebook, the IDS approach wants to be free of any specific identity management, and we want to foresee that in data spaces you must have your identity managed, but you can make use of different kinds. And we're already working in that direction with decentralized identity management mechanisms.
Yes, correct. And also, just wanted to add, so we have a repository and a page called IDSG, where we are also publicly publishing the specifications and criteria about how these components should behave. And so if you are going to, let's say, develop a broker, so you may check the criteria there, and so your level of compliance depends on how much do you really comply with those criteria. So I will be sharing the link in the chat in a minute. Awesome. So we can have a final question. I think we have 2-3 minutes left, and at 11 there will be an alarm testing in Germany, which I think nobody would like to expect live.
Let's see, we have 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, Anil, if there are no more questions, we can close showing the upcoming events. And also, so you will also find a slide with the dates of the working group meetings and the overview of our events, so that maybe that triggers also some interest from the participants.
Perfect. I will be opening that.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Giulia.
Yeah, please keep in mind that these events are in person, and that IDSA is also organizing some events dedicated for a specific area. So you can see that we are offering the first, we call them Data Spaces Discovery Day in Italy. We're also offering a similar event in Vienna in October. And in the same week, we are also inaugurating a new hub facilitator in Bratislava. So, sorry about that. Yeah, so please check out the events. We also have some more online events. So yeah, make sure to register for them.
Perfect. So maybe we can close the session, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Giulia. Thank you, Sonia, for the great presentations and questions and answers. So we are original, so we are concluding this session with an alarm sound. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us anytime. So thank you.